Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is May 24th, 2023. All commissioners are present. First on the agenda are comments for items not on the agenda. Please come up. And just a note that speakers have 3 minutes to address the board. Somebody would like to keep track. Good morning. Just state your name and address for the record.
Andy Strauss. Morning. It's May. It's foster care awareness. I've sat on committees for the last 10 years and haven't been active on it this last year and a half. But today is my mom's birthday, and to honor her, as I've always done before, wanted to get back to doing what I've always done before for her. So I just wanted to share just a couple minutes with you on the importance of foster care and how children in Oregon need families that are willing to step up to foster, to be a home that's willing to be a bridge, to be a safe place to fall, temporarily or long term. We had the privilege of opening our home for 10 years, both in Marion County and Polk County. Also serving a couple kiddos from the county 5 years back when Washington County was going through a crisis when they didn't have homes available. Polk was helping them out for a couple of years. We two of our kiddos that we fostered, we ended up adopting. So I just brought a picture really quick just to kind of tell you a little bit about them. I will keep it very short, I promise. But what I just wanted to share a little bit about is that foster care really affects everything in our community, from mental health, from homelessness to all the crises that we see in our community. Both of our boys, their first families have experienced hopelessness, mental health, immigration issues, crisis issues. Their struggles, both health-wise and mental health-wise, will follow them for their entire lives, which we carry that and we've signed up for that, to carry that as we adopted them. But I think it's just important for our community to be aware of that too, that is, as a community, we need to come along and not only support them as the children of foster care, but also as their families. Because I can tell you from the years that we've done it, and still as I sit on 2 different committees and active in it still, is that their first families are still, they're products of the foster care system, and it's generational. And so both Jacob and Joey, both of their families, their moms were in foster care and their parents were. And so it's real easy, I think, for people to point blame that, well, their parents didn't take care of them, and their parent, and that's why they lost their parental rights. And right, they made some choices that caused them to lose their children, but they didn't have good mentors or good resources to teach them how to take care of their children also, because of the cycle of where they got there. So that's all I'm here to do, is just share a little bit just on that. So I'm sorry.
We're a little over 3 minutes now.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So
thank you so much, Mandy.
Yeah, I know in the past they've done, I think, foster care awareness or proclamation thing or whatever, but I hadn't seen it on the agenda yet. And I just thought, oh, today I'm doing a few different things for my mom. So
Thanks for being a foster
Well.
parent. It's a very difficult thing to do. I have friends that do it. It takes special people.
I'm not anymore. We just do respite, but it's near and dear to our hearts. And it's something that everybody can do something, everybody can do something, whether respite or buy a meal for a foster family. That's a big thing. Or give them a date night. That's a huge thing. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we have a motion to approve the minutes from May 17th.
So move. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved. I'll second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next on the agenda, Mr. Barry, we have appointment of the county surveyor with order number 2308. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
So as we discussed last week, and I hopefully summed up in the memo, I do recommend that you appoint Darren Blackwell as the next county surveyor. He's been with us for about 4 years, been licensed for a little over a year. And I've been actively training him for a year or two, to hopefully get him in a position where he's prepared to hit the ground running.
And is Darren okay with this suggestion? Okay. Just want to make sure. Any questions for Eric or Darren? There is a position description attached.
Yes, Commissioner Pope asked me to look at that. I did go through that, made a few small changes. It was actually pretty good. One of the better ones that I've reviewed. The changes that I made were largely grammatical items.
Mr. Hawkins.
Those are not official changes. I haven't
Correct.
made those changes.
Okay.
They haven't gone through the channels that
This is
do, but
my
but they will be made and taken care of.
And we'll see the kind of HR approved changes.
That I'm gonna be able to adopt what he's changed.
Okay.
It's not a job spec like some of our others that need a lot of changing often because there's an ORS that states what the duties are. And as Eric said,
large part of it.
grammatical changes.
What's our timeline on this? Once they drop dead, we must make a decision date.
You technically don't have a surveyor. And surveyor has ORS requirements to sign plats and those kind of things. And so I don't know how many are in the hopper or how many other things there are.
There's several. It's a revolving door with surveys and plats coming through.
So you never have to do it if you don't want to. It's just but Eric's retired. Officially retired, so technically you don't have a surveyor at this moment. So the sooner you do it, probably the better.
So I'd like to make a motion that we make Darren Blackwell our interim surveyor.
Interim or permanent? He was it for 25 years.
Interim. Yeah. I think we should probably break the chain.
Yeah, let's make him a permanent. So, yeah, and then how are you gonna grow this? Are you gonna live up to that?
No.
I didn't see it in the job spec. You could add it.
I'd like to make a motion, we accept Darren Blackwell as our permanent county surveyor for order number 2308.
Second with discussion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to appoint Darren Blackwell as our permanent surveyor. Discussion.
So does this position have a normal probation period like anybody else would have?
It does not.
Okay. And,
It serves at the pleasure of the appointing authority.
okay,
So that means permanently on probation.
yeah, it's just, this is an irregular process for us, so I need to ask these questions, even though I've been doing this a while. Just so we always have a safety valve if the job doesn't work out. And so part of my concern and question is we're directly appointing someone to a job that if they weren't able to perform, what's the process? What's the pathway for them to go back? Or is that they're done if it doesn't work?
Under our policy personnel rules, that individual would be done. Simply because you cannot go from a union position to a non-union position and lose that position and get to bump back into the union position.
Just questions I have to ask, so I want to make certain that we all have that discussion and understand what that looks like. Ultimately, this decision comes back on this board if we're not happy for whatever reason, so I'm still good.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Eric, for your service, and thank you, Darren. Welcome
You
aboard.
owe us a seat somewhere on water, probably somewhere. That's great.
I already made it further than Eric ever
Oh,
did.
my.
Eric's been the interim forever and he
Yeah.
already got the permanent.
I guess I could cut it.
All right, well, thanks all. Good discussion. Next up on the agenda is the Fall City Wastewater Facilities Expansion Plan. Mr. Foscoli, please join us. Would please state your name for the record and position.
Yes, AJ Foscoli, City Manager for Fall City.
Thank you. We're waiting for your PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's part of the agenda. The original document is actually quite robust, about 100 pages. As Mr. Grant Hansen stated, he would like me to be brief. Or actually, yes, his hope that would be brief. I summarized the document, the plan, into some of the more salient points. Basically showing what the service area would be for this new facilities expansion, wastewater facilities expansion. Also, both within the city and outside of the city, where the with the new facultative lagoons would be placed. So, and then finally the cost of each of the phases as Westec Engineering has envisioned this to come to fruition at some point in the future.
You're having some technical difficulties and your PowerPoint wasn't sent as a PowerPoint.
Sorry, it was a PDF.
Doesn't quite translate.
As long as the board has it in their agenda, I think I can talk through it. So
It happened.
in fact, the first couple of pages of the water lines themselves, you'll see in green are the current served individuals, residents in the city. We have 179 connections, and Westec Engineering highlighted some brighter green for some of the improvements in those existing lines. The rest of the colors, which are purple and red, those are completely new to Fall City wastewater lines. We do have 479 water accounts. So technically we are just a little over 1/3 of the city is served by wastewater. So this project would be quite monumental for the city because it would bring in the other 2/3 that are not currently served. In order to process all of this additional matter that comes from the city, there would be an additional lagoon added. Falls City recently purchased the land for the current expansion, which includes 2 lagoons. And so you would have a 3rd lagoon that then would accommodate this additional load.
Has that option been exercised, that purchase option?
We have purchased it, yes. Yeah. So we're well on our way to getting that project started during this construction season. So currently where that 3rd facultative lagoon would go is where the city would do its the irrigation of the water that's treated. So we would need to find some additional land in order to have that effluent go once it's been treated. So for irrigation purposes, there are several properties that are sizable and have agricultural uses. So that that effluent would probably be welcome especially in drier summer months. So we have a good plan in place to eventually bring in the entire community under a unified system, which would be helpful for the community as far as its viability in the future, as far as growth. Right now, we are currently limited in the kinds of businesses and industries that could come to Fall City. We have just under 30 acres of industrial land in the middle of town that can't really be used because we don't have the capacity to treat any of its effluent, and industrial effluent. So this could really be a game changer for the city. And yes, it has a very high price tag. However, it's something that the community does need, and it's just a matter of planning. And from the city side, we really thank Polk County for having granted us the funds in order to go through this facility's expansion plan. This is an important document for us to have in order to secure funding at some point in the future from the various state and federal agencies.
A couple of questions,
Yes.
AJ. I'm looking at priority 1
Yes.
on table 8.1. At the very bottom, T1 WWTP improvements phase 2. Is that the 3rd lagoon? 3.9 million?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not seeing any, and I don't have I have a copy of the full plan, but is there are there financing options listed out in the plan? Grant funds, different scenarios? Or how, if not, what would be the next step to sort of start planning?
Well, similar to the current the current replacement that we're undergoing, we would explore, both state and federal avenues. We are eventually eligible for more funding from federal agencies. Currently, we're using that up for this particular replacement, but we do hope that we would be eligible. The fact that Fall City is a low to medium income community really does make us eligible for a lot of different financing programs from the federal government. So in that respect, we're in a good position. It's just a matter of, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So this would have to be a phased project. West Tech divided into 3 phases, roughly, about 10 million, 10 million, 7 million each, roughly. So it is something that will be ongoing for the community. Now, the good thing is the current expansion has by and large been funded through grants, and there will be some rate increases, but not to the extent that the current ratepayers would be unduly impacted. So we feel like we are in a good position to reach out to the rest of the community and say, well, these, 179 folks have been paying for their wastewater fees, and they had some increases in order to replace the current system. The other 2/3 of the city would have increases, obviously, because they've never been part of a comprehensive system, but their impact wouldn't be exorbitant. Now, $10 million is obviously, even the first phase is twice as much as the current replacement, which came in at $5.25 million, which we were very happy about. So there will be some planning to do, and the more grant funding that we're able to secure, the more viable at least the first phase will be, and then subsequent phases as well.
Do you anticipate a citywide bond?
Absolutely.
Necessary at some point?
Yes, absolutely.
As you know, the challenge is going to be convincing the 179 current customers that they ought to pay for an expansion.
Correct. And
That's a political challenge.
Absolutely.
It's one that the city's been aware of since they built the system. So it's important for the citizens to know that this is probably an inevitability, but getting council on board and finding a good equitable plan to finance this will be difficult.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why, as much as possible, we wanted to make sure that those sewer rate increases were as minimal as possible, so that they could feel that we're doing the best that we can in order to support them in continuing to provide services for them, but also to serve the entire community.
Again, I would love for you to engage Regional Solutions. They're finalizing candidates now for our region. And, I know since I was mayor, this board was always very interested in the development of that project. So please keep us engaged. It's very good that you have this in place so you can actually start planning. Curious if anyone has any questions?
It's a major project for it inside the whole city.
Just
Getting this far is a big hurdle. It's not a plan in front of you. You have any kind of a time frame in mind for future goals or?
I can only go off of the current project that I've been part of for these past 2.5 years. The CDBG grant that was submitted for this particular project was in 2019. So that, and we're now 4 years later. So it took us about 5 years in total from the inception, the community outreach, the submission of the applications and so on and so forth. So for the first phase, I imagine anywhere between 5 and 7 years would be probably a fair estimate.
You said the current project, the replacement project, is going to break ground this season.
Yes. Yeah, we're very.
Does the contractor foresee any supply chain issues, or are there delays, or is there some confidence that?
We haven't even had our first meeting between our funding agencies, Business Oregon, West Tech Engineering, and the contractor. So we've just signed the contracts, and we're trying to schedule that to understand what the milestones are going to be. That's a lot of information that we do need to have, but the West Tech Engineering has been told that they're fully committed to breaking ground this summer.
Well, thanks, AJ. Keep us posted. Congratulations.
Yes. Yes.
So on these alternative sites, you have a land use process, I'm guessing, that you're going to need to go through for each.
Absolutely. Yes.
Has any of that started yet?
No, it has not, but we have been talking, not formally, we've been talking to the various property owners to first understand where their interests lie in participating in this project. And so far, we've done a pretty good job, and not just me, but prior to me coming on board, the community has done a very good job of outreaching all of those properties outside of city limits to make sure that they understand what the impact is going to be of the project. And we've had some very good, very good communication. I've maintained that communication with those property owners to make sure that, they understand that this is going right next door. So we want them to be fully engaged as partners. And when it comes down to it, there will be obviously agreements made and they will be compensated for any kind of participation that they provide for the future expansions. As the current property owners are being compensated for their participation in this current phase.
But have you explored all the nuances of this land use development with community development upstairs?
With upstairs? No, we haven't. So this
Feels like a significant process, so I would recommend you get started.
absolutely.
Irrespective of the money. I mean, that's got to pick the spot and figure out what that's going to look like going forward. Eventually, you're going to get the money eventually. So yeah, you don't want to wait till you have the money and then have to go through the process.
Yes.
It feels a little like ODOT. Additionally, I want to know what the backdrop of a DEQ order is. What kind of DEQ orders do you have to meet objectives of fixing this problem? Do you have a DEQ? Let him answer, please. Do you have a DEQ order that is telling the city that they must achieve certain goals by a certain date?
The current replacement right now was based on the fact that the city kept having challenges in meeting DEQ standards.
I'm sorry, repeat the last part.
We kept having challenges meeting DEQ standards, especially in heavy rain events. So because our current facility is at its max lifespan, we had the added incentive to push for funding to replace that current system. So for this expansion, we would have already met those DEQ, incentives, let's call them, to replace our failing system. But to have a unified system would help the community going forward.
So that didn't quite answer my question. Is there an emergency here based on DEQ incentives? I don't see DEQ incentives, but
yeah, most of the septic tanks throughout the city are quite old. The ones that we are replacing, the ones that are in the system that we're replacing right now are no older than 35 years. All the rest of the city, we have, in some cases, have no idea how old those are. And chances are, a lot of them are failing, but it's up to the individuals to maintain them and be responsible for any kind of failures. My guess is just based on just the ones that are under our system, which we have to maintain, we have to keep track of. They're not always in the best shape, and it's on us to fix those. And that's just 1/3 of the city. So my guess is, without knowing specifically how many of the ones that are outside of our purview to review and inspect, my guess is a lot of them are not in great shape. I did try to get some DEQ funding from, I actually went directly to DEQ to see if there was some funding to inspect all of the septic tanks throughout the city in order to make sure that we would have a better picture of exactly what you're asking. And we weren't successful. I went directly to DEQ, and then I also went to the COG to see if there was a plan by the COG overseeing the Marion, Polk, and Yamhill counties, if there was a plan by them to assist smaller cities to identify sanitary problems. We also weren't successful there. So
You're talking about the private septics? outside
private
of the
sector,
current system?
yes, because they will be part of our new system. And I wanted to understand, and I'm sure that DEQ would also want to understand, what is the picture on the ground.
When you talk to community development, you may want to touch base about the county sanitarian as well, if there are known issues.
I would welcome any help in identifying, problem areas, especially within our city limits.
That'd be a good conversation to have at least, yeah.
But to answer your question, Commissioner, this expansion would not be under DEQ edict to replace or upgrade because it's an expansion. What they're doing now is basically under either easier to get money for something that's being directed by DEQ than rather than an expansion. So even though because of their low income and moderate income out there, there will be available, a lot more grants available for them without the DEQ requirement that you need to fix this. That may not help them.
What I'm looking at is the inevitability of a DEQ edict.
Won't, because it's all private. So they only look at systems. If there's a health hazard, then you can ask them. They have to decide whether they take them into the existing system, but they can't force an expansion of the system.
So
That's their issue.
who inspects and certifies private septic? Nobody?
I mean, obviously, if
County
it,
does.
if it fails, if there's leaching, if there's, then someone notices that there's a potential health hazard, you go out there and say, oh, your septic is failing, you need to do one of the three things. In a lot of cases, they probably don't even have the land area to fix their septic.
Under new rules for,
Yes.
for leach field, yeah.
Or it will be very, very expensive beyond their capability. But DEQ probably doesn't really, unless it rises to a widespread health hazard.
It'd be helpful for the community to know that a bit as they plan their expansions. Because if there's a block or something with, hey, your leach fields don't meet code. So as soon as you go to replace that, you're out of luck. That'd be a good place to start. If that comports with the facilities plan, that might be good.
Like I said, when I heard that there was some funding potentially for inspections or replacement of septic tanks, I did reach out to DQ to try to figure out what is the picture. We know exactly what's going on with the 179 septic tanks under our control. But we don't, because they're city owned. But anyone outside of that, we have no control. We have no information. And so I wanted to gather enough funding to do that surveying, and we would have done it. When it comes to the residents themselves, it would have been grant funded, so it wouldn't have cost them anything to at least find out how good is their septic tank, how good is their septic, the individual septic system. So we were getting to basically give them, valuable information. I couldn't get that funding, unfortunately. It was around 200,000 in total, just based on estimates for individual septic tank inspections.
That was DEQ grant.
Yes.
And you any feedback?
It just sounded like one small individual community asking DEQ for something like this was something that they weren't comfortable having us manage. So that's why then I went back and tried to go through the COG route, because COG has more capacity to do something like this, not just for Falls City, but other small cities. And it didn't go through, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying.
I kind of agree with Craig, though. Eventually, whether it's in river testing, and there could be some leaching into groundwater and things like that could affect public health. Assuming that some of those private systems are not up to snuff.
I'm like I said,
Yeah,
we have 179 that are 35 years old-ish, and some of them are having some trouble. So Falls City has been around since 1891, at least as an incorporated city. So that's a lot of time for some of these septic tanks to have issues.
Especially knowing that what I've been told by is that most septic systems lifespan 25 years, and they should be replaced at 25 or beyond. So you got a whole bunch of them that are well beyond their normal active life
Absolutely. Yeah.
with, as Greg said, no repair area, not enough room for repair area.
not an easy task.
You talked about phases. Tell me what the phases would be in this.
So they're broken down, West Tech broken down roughly in three phases. Phase one, about $1 million, phase two, another million, $10 million, phase two, $10 million, and the last phase about 7 million, 7.5 million. So
But I never saw 27 million total in here.
it should be in the,
It's down at the bottom.
yeah, it's at the very bottom.
And I just have the preliminary.
Right. The one that I sent Nicole both versions so that you would have a chance to look at the full one.
Okay.
And if you were accepting that, I don't know that you are or not, this estimate or this quote, how much of that needed funding is in hand?
None,
None.
none at this point.
So and the money that the county has put in is just paying the West Tech bill.
In order to understand what we need to pay in order to bring everyone under the same system, correct?
No other grants have landed, none towards this goal?
No, not at the moment.
You haven't started the work yet.
No, we have not.
Any of the
No,
planning or
no,
the replanning.
we've been highly focused on making sure that we break ground on the current replacement for this summer. Now that I literally signed all the contracts. Now I can give my full attention to looking for the funding for this expansion.
And the city has no money assigned to this project?
We have a utility reserve fund that's been used for all of our work in order to get the current replacement moving forward. We have some, but we're not talking a heck of a lot of money. So we generate about 50,000 a year just for that utility reserve fund. So we have some money, for example, to pursue. We will need to do a rate study, for example, for this. So we have some money set aside that we could do a rate study to bring that forward in order to add it to this expansion, facility expansion plan, so that we have the documentation ready to seek funding, but we don't have actual money in order to do the construction proper or the design.
The utility reserve fund is for existing water and sewer systems, right?
Yeah.
Replacement of mains, gravel filters, et cetera.
Yes. So rate studies would fall under that just because it is part also of the current system.
Thanks.
Thank you, AJ. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Keep us posted on breaking ground on the system. That
Yes, I will. I will certainly do that.
few people get excited about that project, about sewer systems, but count me in.
All right.
Hey, no problem.
All right. Next up is a JRI letter of support. Jody, and I assume Noel is here for that?
No.
No? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I can do it.
In your packet is a letter of support. This is one of the requirements of submitting the JRI grant application. I believe Lip Sync does one, the Board of Commissioners does one, and any other letters of support are welcome, but I think those are the only two requirements. This is one of the final things that you need to have as part of the packet that Jody will submit for our grant application. So I would recommend that you sign the letter of support. I think it's in your packet. If not, I have it here.
I'm good with it. I'll make a motion that we sign the JRI letter of support for the JRI grant.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Mr. Pope.
Yeah, so I've just supplied the upcoming update or renewal of a memorandum of understanding for Oregon Timber Counties Coalition. This will be our third year, as I recall, our third year involved in this organization. And as you can see, and has been Our share from the beginning was $7,500. And I've explained to several of these county commissioners that I've been involved with that, okay, that's fine while we're getting it up and running and bringing on other counties. But at some point, the reality check would have to come in that we essentially get about $4,000 a year from U.S. Forest Service cut. And it is challenging for me to support nearly double that amount in dues to an association that is doing the work on behalf of Forest Service land interests. So I personally think that it's appropriate for us to say, look, we need to reduce this at least by half. And I'm certainly willing to even consider less than that as a proposal going forward. There's no mandate that we have to pay a certain amount, and we have taken on other counties since this started. And I think we're at a place where Polk County just needs to say, look, we need to make a contribution that's reasonable against what we receive. I'm all for doing the work and continuing to advocate in Washington, D.C., which is primarily where this money goes for legislative lobby, but it probably should be more in line with what we receive. So that's my report, and want to hear what anybody else thinks.
Do you have a sense in your mind about what would be an equitable return on dues? Or is it kind of a wait and see? Let's reduce this. Let's see if there's more performance in terms of.
Well, I don't want to pull out. I mean, I think that it's appropriate. We're there. Our voice, this amount of money that we're paying doesn't necessarily represent any equality in a vote. And this has been, again, this was built fairly loosely from the beginning, but there have been other counties that have come on or proposing to come on that will pay more. And as you can see in this, Douglas County, I can tell you right along, has been paying $15,000. Plymouth County has been paying $15,000. Jackson County is not on board yet officially, but their $15,000 contribution will make a difference. I just think that it's appropriate we're there, but I don't think that our contribution should double what we net. And I think it should be the other way around. In all honesty, I think a $2,000 contribution is probably more in line with what our net receipts are. It's important, but it's not so important that we take money out of our general fund essentially to pay for it. We're never going to see a return on that kind of an investment. I don't think that we're going to change the Forest Service rules in any significant way that makes our revenues substantially increase. So
I would support the $2,000. I think we need to be there. I think we need to have our name on that litigation to support the timber industry. I think it's very crucial for it. So I would support $2,000.
I would too, and keep an eye on it over time in case that might be reason to change that in the future.
yeah, I support that as well.
Okay, should we make that an official motion for dues?
I'll make a motion for the Federal Timber Coalition that we will stay involved at a $2,000 annual rate rather than the current $7,500 going forward.
And I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for keeping an eye on that. Okay. Lastly, we have a job specification, salary range reclass. Mr. Hawkins.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I am here today to request the adoption of a new job specification, specifically the Finance Analyst 1. This job is being created with the grant funds that we received from NWVHA to be able to oversee the funding of that, as was talked about yesterday. Along with the creation of the job specification, we are asking that Haley Mode be reclassed into this position. Haley's has the experience. She's been in our finance department, obviously currently handling payroll for us, but she's the person that would be able to step in and get us going quickly. With the reclassification, it would be effective June 1st. There would be, it's kind of a weird situation just for that month. We're looking around a $4,000 increase, including PERS and health insurance, all of that. And then obviously we're able to budget for this next fiscal year.
I'm okay with it.
I'm good with it.
Right?
Go forth and
Thank you.
Mo Daly. Thank you. That concludes everything on the main agenda. Is there any need for an executive session?
Sir, the board will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660 sub 2F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection, and sub H to consult with counsel on legal rights and duties of the public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Noel, did you have something?
No, she's here for the executive.
You're here for the exec. Okay.